Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the compassionate. Name is Ibrahim Hooper. I'm National Communications Director with the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Thank you all for coming today. Obviously, this news conference is in response to the Islamophobic remarks made by Ben Carson. And we'll have a few comments by the participants, and then we'll take some quick questions after the conclusion of the prepared remarks. Our first speaker is Nihad Awad. He's National Executive Director of CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nihad Awad, N-I-H-A-D A-W-A-D. I'm the National Executive Director of CAIR. Thank you very much for coming. So over the weekend, like many American Muslims, I was shocked to hear the news that a presidential candidate made an anti-Muslim statement. When I saw the news, actually I did not see it on TV. I saw an email, and I thought the email could be like an old email stating something about, years ago someone made a statement. But to my shock, it was a current presidential candidate on national television stating that a Muslim cannot be a president of the United States. This was so shocking to us that we thought maybe we should tell the story of the Muslim community, but also we should remind a presidential candidate like Ben Carson about a very important document in the United States, and that is the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States, which clearly says that, and I have it here, no religious test shall be ever required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States, in pure English. This cannot be misunderstood. It cannot be twisted around. This is a very clear language to all Americans, to all generations, irrespective of who they are. The protection of freedom of religion in America is a fundamental principle of our country. So whether you're Christian, you're Jewish, you're Muslim, you're Catholic, you're black, you're brown, you're white, if you are born in this country, if you uphold the Constitution, if you have the vision, if you fit to lead, you can lead irrespective of your faith tradition. Not long ago, some people thought that a Catholic cannot be a president, an African American cannot be a president. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now. And that's why we say Mr. Ben Carson is wrong today to assume and say that American Muslim cannot be president of the United States. His views are inconsistent with the United States Constitution. For that, we really urge politicians, the general public, community leaders, presidential candidates to repudiate his views. And we ask Mr. Ben Carson to withdraw from the presidential race because he's unfit to lead, because his views are in contradiction with the United States Constitution. Thank you. And before I finish, in anticipation of more attacks on Islam and the Muslim community during the presidential campaign and until it's over, we urge to use this as a teachable moment to learn about Islam from its original sources. So we are relaunching our campaign to offer the public and presidential candidates to read about Islam from its original sources, mainly the Quran. We're providing copies of the Quran free of charge. It has the text and context with the original language of Arabic, with English translation, and the context in which the ayat or the verses were revealed. We're offering this free of charge. We're asking people just to pay shipping and handling. They can visit the website explorethequran.com. Explorethequran.com.
That's Q-U-R-A-N.
Q-U-R-A-N. So we're urging the presidential candidates to learn about Islam, to meet with the Muslim community, to visit a mosque before they make statements that are un-American and unconstitutional like Ben Carson did. Thank you.
And we'll be sending one of these Qurans to Mr. Carson so that he can read for himself that Islam is consistent with American values. I mean, we live here, millions of American Muslims live their daily lives and live their faith in complete harmony with our society and with American values. And we're big supporters of the Constitution on a daily basis, from people like Mr. Carson who would deny its benefits and protections to American Muslims. Next, we'll have Imam Mahdi Bray. He's the Washington, D.C. National Director for the American Muslim Alliance.
Thank you. I'm Mahdi, M-A-H-D-I, Bray, B-R-A-Y, with the American Muslim Alliance. You know, wow. My heart was so saddened to hear those words come out of the mouth of an individual who was espousing for seeking the highest office in our land, America. Not only because it's inconsistent with the U.S. Constitution, but what do I tell my kids? What do I tell my son, my daughter? That a person who is seeking to be the President of the United States says that they, as Muslims, could not aspire to be the President of the United States. This is not America. This is not the America that I know. This is not the America that Abraham Lincoln talked about in terms of the better angels. What Dr. Ben Carson said was hateful, hurtful, and, you know, I heard some of his surrogates try to dress it up, you know, in terms of he's not trying to be politically correct. Well, he's wrong. He's politically wrong. And I do share with CAIR and others who are calling for him to withdraw for the race of the presidency of the United States. This is not the correct thing to do. I'll conclude and remind Ben Carson what Dr. King once said. He said that the coward will ask, is it safe? Vanity, in this case, politically vanity, will ask, is it popular? But conscience will ask, is it right? And what he said was not right. It was wrong and hurtful. And America is better than that. And I'll conclude by saying that basically he should pull out of the campaign because basically he could, what he said, stick the fork in his campaign because he's done. He's done because I believe that the people of America will not elect for their president of the United States someone who holds such bigoted and un-American views. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Reverend Grayland Hagler, Senior Minister with Plymouth United Church of Christ. Sorry.
And good morning, everybody. As was said, I'm Reverend Grayland Hagler. I am the senior pastor of Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ here in Washington, D.C. I've been the senior pastor at Plymouth for 24 years and have continued to stand up for issues of social justice, human rights, and general respect. I think we got to be clear that in this political season, what we have witnessed so far has been a season where hatred and hostility has been fostered by candidates starting with Donald Trump talking about those who have come across the border are rapists and murderers, and a few good ones are, a few of them are good folk. That kind of racism that exists, or kind of Islamic phobia that we have seen. In fact, the political season has gone to a whole new low in the United States of America. And yes, Ben Carson, he should need to understand that we live in a pluralistic society. And in a pluralistic society such as the United States of America, anybody can run to be president of the United States, whether you are a theist or even an atheist. It doesn't matter whether you come from the United Methodist Church, the Baptist Church, the Jewish faith, or the Muslim faith. What we really have continued to talk about in our society is a process of freedom of religion, that people are able to practice their own faith traditions as long as they don't willfully try to impose that upon somebody else, or have a government-sponsored religion trying to pose that on the public. We stand in this place where we believe in freedom. Yes, Ben Carson, by making that statement, again, exemplified a xenophobia that exists, that is unhealthy in the United States of America. And he should step down in terms of his run, but also Donald Trump also needs to leave the presidential circuit as well, because he has continued to breed hatred and hostility. And let's be clear, you know, there's a competition right now in the among the political candidates in terms of who can be more insensitive than the other. They looked at Donald Trump, who led in the polls on insensitivity and racism and xenophobia, and now everybody in their own way is trying to be engaged in that competition. Why? Because one thing that we recognize with the election of a black president, where the majority of those who support Trump believes that he's Muslim and was not born in the United States, and 40-some% of the American public believe that he's Muslim and wasn't born in the United States. We see that kind of xenophobia gripping the entire country because there is an angry white backlash to the election of President Obama that has existed, and Donald Trump and others are trying to foster that kind of hatred that exists out there without trying to raise up the level of dignity in the political discourse. We've gone the opposite direction, where right now the politicians are acting like thugs and demagogues, and it's time for it to stop. Ben Carson needs to leave the race, and Donald Trump needs to leave the race. Thank you.
Come on.
Next, we'll have Rabia Ahmed. She's with the Muslim Public Affairs Council. She's the Media and Communications Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rabia Ahmed, and I am with the I am the Media and Communication Director for the Muslim Public Affairs Council. We are here today to first extend an invitation to Dr. Carson, who has recently engaged in hate mongering as a means to garner national news attention and political support from a certain segment of his base. Our message is this: Dr. Carson, you should have more faith in the American people. 50 years ago, there were people in this country who said that African Americans were unfit to be president. And because of the struggles of civil rights leaders, many of whom were Muslim, we have an African American president in office today. And you have the opportunity to run for president as well. Dr. Carson, 50 years from now, when America has moved well beyond its fear of Islam and Muslims, people will look back at our current climate of hate and mistrust with disdain and disgust. And you, Donald Trump, Governor Bobby Jindal, and anyone else who has promoted anti-Muslim bigotry will be seen as the faces of Islamophobia in America. Do you really want to leave that legacy? Do you really want to be on the wrong side of history? Today, MPAC, whose mission is in part to improve public understanding of Islam and Muslims through engagement, is extending an invitation to you to meet with actual Muslim voters and Muslim community leaders. We believe that if you take the time to look past the fear and the headlines, you will find much in common, as American Muslims are committed to building peace in this country, contributing to the advancement of society, and upholding the values of our Constitution. We also want to take this opportunity to thank all of those who have spoken up against this recent string of Islamophobic remarks. Congressman Ted Lieu of California and Bernie Sanders of Vermont have been the most outspoken. We have faith that our fellow Americans, religious and political leaders, and media commentators will also rise to the challenge and challenge anti-Muslim bigotry, as this is an issue that we can, nor should we handle alone. Islamophobia, just like racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, is an American issue. Thank you.
And finally, we'll have Imam Johari with the Council of Muslim Organizations for the Greater Washington, D.C. area. Is that,
Good morning, everyone.
if you can spell
Imam Johari Abdul Malik, IMAMJOHARI, Abdul Malik, ABDUL-MALIK. I serve on the board of the Council of Muslim Organizations of Greater Washington, D.C. But I think perhaps this morning I really stand before you as a father, as someone who, if you ask the members of our council, they would say every child has the right to dream that they could become the President of the United States. Myself, I'm a native son of Brooklyn, New York, a descendant of enslaved Africans freed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Congress in the 14th and the 13th Amendments to the Constitution, reaffirmed and freed again by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 65. So I stand also as a clergy in the Islamic tradition saying there is no contradiction between our faith and the Constitution of the United States of America. And it enshrines for us in its First Amendment that we have the freedom to practice our religion peacefully along with other citizens. And we have the right as a citizen to run for any office of the United States and to let the American people decide who should be their leaders. Dr. Martin Luther King reminds us that we should evaluate people not based on the color of their skin, but based on the content of their character. Now, I have some concerns about some of the characters who are running for the office of the United States presidency, because when you say I'm going to be the president, it means that you're going to uphold the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. General Colin Powell reminds us that if someone is eligible to die for their country, then they should have the right to lead their country. I believe sincerely that we now have a problem in America with our moral compass, that it's time for us to say, as an American people, black, white, red, yellow, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, Jain, Zoroastrian, every faith and no faith, to be able to say, never again will we go back to a tradition of racism and bigotry. I move that we as a people move forward with a spirit of civility. There are those who have said that our nation has survived World War I, World War II, Vietnam. We now run the risk of being destroyed from within by those who would seek to divide us. We are a society that respects law and order, and we expect to have law enforcement executed with the highest levels of civil rights, human rights, due process, and justice. I'm going to close, but to say that I believe that the American people should say loudly and clearly that we want representatives who speak to a nation that is one nation under God, and maybe for some people good consciousness, with liberty for everybody and justice for all. Thank you.